Yeah, I'm here with Jackson talking about the things he's been doing at the Engineer Cafe and just things he's doing in Japan in general. So just tell us a quick bit about your sort of work at the moment and how you came into that.
So I am a freelance technical writer. Uh, Before that, I was working with scientists, helping them write research papers for academic journals. And that was it was interesting, but it can be kind of a stuffy field. And I had been interested in coding for a long time, so I decided to take some programming courses and sort of transfer into working in tech. And I don't regret that at all.
Oh, okay. So you started off sort of towards the academic side, but on the technical writing, and then you started thinking about tech and programming a bit more.
Yeah, so it sort of depends on how you define technical writing. I guess it was more scientific writing before.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, depending on who you ask. But now I'm doing technical writing as in like writing for developers and for software users and stuff.
So things like documentation,
Yep.
guides, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I guess it sort of runs the gamut from like push this button for a non-technical user to instructions for using APIs and SDKs and even internal documentation for like within tech companies, like documenting decisions and stuff. So that's on like the more, I guess, complex end of stuff.
Awesome. So you said you did a few programming courses and stuff.
Yep.
How did you start studying?
I think I wasn't really sure what I was looking for at the beginning, and actually just looked for free courses. And I found CS50, which is, I guess you call it a MOOC.
A MOOC, yes.
Like
So it's a massively online
open coursework.
coursework.
I don't know if online or open, which comes first. But yeah, it was created by a prof at Harvard. And like, even if you don't sign up, I guess you can sign up officially through edX, but like I think all the lectures are on YouTube. So even without having to register, you can just like access the materials. I really, really liked it. I guess it's kind of an intro to computer science for people who've never studied computer science before, which was my case. And then they have a few follow-up courses. So I took their follow-up AI course. So it's basically called like CS50s, like computer science for artificial intelligence or something.
Okay.
And I guess that was enough of a foundation to like pair with my other experience to.
So at the time, were you thinking you were going to become a programmer or a software engineer, or you were thinking still you were going to be in writing?
I wasn't sure. At that point, I was just like, this is interesting. And I'd also thought like, okay, in academia, like maybe I could look at more like some sort of working with data, like data science or some sort of processing or visualization. And then I was kind of like, yeah, you know what, software development, I don't know if I'll become a developer, but I was like, this is an interesting field.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a great thing now that you can try these online courses, get your feet wet, do a little bit of something and see if you like it.
Oh yeah, and there's like lots of opportunities for like free or very cheap training. The CS50 course is amazing. And yeah, it's all available.
So I know CS50 is maybe a bit more theoretical than some of the courses, but did you feel like you got enough of a chance to like actually write code and make stuff?
Yes. And actually, I found the theory was kind of interesting because I guess before that, I took one course, or just like an online training, and I was like, okay, I should learn something computer related. And I took a course in SQL. And that was a horrible first step, because it was basically like, okay, let's start writing some database queries. And there was no like why, there was no like, how can we use computers to solve problems? And there wasn't even any like, how can we use databases to solve problems? So it was like way too much in the weeds for me to like understand why this mattered. But yeah, CS50, like there's a lot of like personal projects and stuff. And some of them are automatically graded, which is kind of fun. To like instantly get feedback, like,
see if you got it right.
Oh, there's a bug in your code. And sometimes like even more specifically, like, okay, like there's a bug in like problem 4 or there's a bug when we give it this input.
Yeah, so you can do that automated testing and see if you got it right or not, see kind of what you need to fix. That's a great way to learn, get that feedback straight away.
It was awesome, yeah. It was quite a challenge. I remember once, for one of the assignments, I spent 5 hours looking for a bug in my code. And finally, after 5 hours, I found a single missing indent.
Ouch.
Yeah, so there was something in Python that was supposed to be happening in a loop, and it was happening after the loop. And it was, well, that was kind of painful.
Sounds like great practice, actually, for becoming a software engineer. I think this week I spent about 3 days looking for a bug, which was 2 lines in the end.
Yeah.
But where are those 2 lines?
Yeah. So I'll definitely check indents earlier in the process next time.
Yeah, great lesson to learn. So how long did it take you? Roughly, how long did you study that?
Oh, good question. I think I spent about 6 months on each course. And honestly, like I was doing other work.
Yeah. So you're doing well working. Yeah.
And there were some times where I was just like, I don't want to think about this for a week or 2.
Yes, sure.
But I would say that was enough to like really process and like get time to give it a good whack.
Cool. So after that, like what were your next steps? Were you applying for software jobs, or were you just looking around seeing what there was? What happened next?
That's a good question. I guess I started on some freelancing pages online, but I actually had to start, like, get some ratings to get a profile that people would look at. So I started with like some scientific stuff, like edited someone's research paper for really cheap, and then like got a really good review, and then was like, okay, I guess people like will take you more seriously because it's very like review based. Yeah, and then I started applying to some like I guess like editing jobs for tech writing. So one of the first ones was like a company said, okay, our API documentation and help documentation is like kind of a mess and like written by different people, and they were like, we just want somebody to go crawl through it. So that was a really good project towards the beginning.
So you're talking about how important it is to kind of get that little bit of experience, get some good reviews, especially as a freelancer, to build up to getting the better contracts, the better job.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know, I guess it's worth pointing out, I was doing this mostly over Corona. So particularly a lot of companies were okay looking at online, looking at people in other countries. So like I didn't have to look for a company within like 10K away.
Right. So remote was becoming much more. Do you think it still is, like remote for tech writing?
I haven't had much trouble with that. I mean, I've rarely worked for a company in the same country. I bet.
Okay, so pretty global work style.
I think so.
Cool.
And even with, I mean, sometimes a project is like, here's a document, go do something with it and come back to us. But even companies that do want to have more meetings and chat and Slack and like a bit more contact, they seem to be pretty good at dealing with time zones and stuff. And often they have like, they're already kind of distributed.
Yes.
So
especially in tech.
I mean, I guess that some companies are having their controversy about coming back to the office.
Right.
But I guess with freelancing, it's often expected that you'll be remote.
Yeah,
which is
freelance
awesome.
has a bit more flexibility in those roles in general.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. So I know we first met, I think, at the Engineer Cafe.
Yes, that's true. Because I bought a new computer.
Yeah.
And my friend said, okay, here's a place we should go. And
Cool.
you can play with it.
Yeah, I was really glad to meet you. I saw you at a few different events. And then, so how did you use the Engineer Cafe? Any other things you liked about here?
There's a lot of things I like. It's a good place to focus. It's often quiet, although I do like the events as well, and the like sort of networking and fun stuff. But I find at home, if I can't focus, I come here.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
I like the huge monitors.
Everyone loves the monitors.
Yeah. What else? I guess the vibe. The vibe is cool. I find, although I'm generally fine with this, most of my friends think that my work is incredibly boring.
Right.
And I just sort of start to say like, oh, I write explanations for engineers or whatever, and just like their eyes just glaze over. So, and like most of the time that's like fine. But sometimes I'm like, okay, it's cool to talk to people who are interested in your work and see what they're doing as well.
Yeah. So in fact, you actually came and did a bit of a stream, like an online event for us here. A little while back now, but it was about writing technical English and tips for technical English, which I know is something maybe I struggle with sometimes. You know, you're writing code all day. Actually, writing the English can be a bit tricky. Yeah, how you know, how was that experience?
That was fun. It was fun to create something from scratch. I think I was at a point then where I had done a lot of editing, and it was kind of hard to, well, I guess I'll back up a step. With technical writing, your portfolio is often very important, partly because there's not really certifications.
Yeah.
Few technical writers have a degree in technical writing, and actually they often don't have a degree in like computer science either. So sometimes it's hard to show like I'm competent. But I guess when I started editing, I didn't have a lot of sort of stuff to call my own. So like, it would be a bit weird to point to a company's website and say like, I helped them clean this up.
Right.
When it's like their intellectual property. But that turned out to, that stream turned out to be really useful to show to employers. Because I could say like, I created this, and I have a feeling that saying, oh, here, just like click this YouTube link and like listen for a few minutes is actually kind of an easy sell. Because I've had at least 2 interviews for projects where the person interviewing me said, oh, I saw the video that you provided, like, it was really good. And I was like, oh, I was like, I didn't think anybody had the patience to see that for an application, but I guess because it's just like, click this link.
Yeah, I think it, yeah, like you say, building out a portfolio is important in so many jobs, especially, you know, if you're trying to career change or you don't have formal qualifications. And also things like a video just give you quite a bit of an idea of what the person is like. And, you know, the kind of vibe of a person. Oh, they're doing an event to help other people. Oh, they're, you know, carefully and politely explaining things. Because in real life, okay, it's not just writing code, it's not just writing English. You've got to help your coworkers. You've got to work as a team. That's a big part of it. So.
Yeah, and I guess I should also say, like, when I originally like I agreed to like put that together, I wasn't thinking much about my portfolio at all. It turned out to be a huge benefit, but actually, it's kind of cool explaining a bit more about the profession and about technical writing to people, because I find even sometimes at tech events, I'll say like, I'll meet people and say like, oh, I'm a technical writer. And they're like, oh, so you're like a journalist or something? And I'm like, oh, no, like, sorry, you haven't heard of that? And I think it's useful for like other people in tech to know that it's like, it is a skill that's out there. And I think it can be like very useful. It's certainly in demand. So,
absolutely, yeah.
So I was kind of like, okay, let's share about this. Well, I think you hadn't heard too much about.
I didn't know that much about how people worked. I worked in a lot of startups, and the team size was often so small that we didn't really have space for the technical writer at the size we were at. But yeah, I think in bigger companies you see it more and more, and in startups as well. It's like a growing role.
Yeah, it also it depends on the country as well, because it seems to be a very big thing with American tech companies where they get big enough and they start hiring a lot of tech writers, and particularly some that come to mind, like GitHub, I believe has a pretty large team of tech writers, but less so in Japan. It seems to be, I don't know, I guess something that people do, but it doesn't seem to be anybody's title in most Japanese tech companies.
Like an extra thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't. I'm not sure my stream is going to change that, but it's, I don't know, it's interesting to see how that's different between countries, and maybe can inspire sort of some different ideas or different ways about thinking about responsibilities.
Absolutely. As a programmer, having good documentation for things like APIs and services makes my life, so much easier. I'm thinking about like using Stripe. Has incredibly easy to understand documentation. So I think if anyone here is like thinking about a Japanese company or Japanese team making a tool for the world, you're gonna need good documentation that's aimed at developers, aimed at technical people, so they will use your software. It's a huge need.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that like, I do, maybe I'm biased, but I do think that like sort of newbie or like external perspective can be interesting, because it's like, for example, like I think sometimes developers get caught up in, for example, like thinking about objects and stuff that aren't even visible to their customers, and sometimes it's like, okay, whoa, like that's not what we want to focus on. Because somebody external will never understand
exactly
what you're trying to get at here. And yeah, so I think sometimes if you have somebody whose job, like me, to say like, okay, that like, no, like we need to simplify this, or we need to talk about this differently, I think it's kind of cool. I'm very happy to be able to do that.
It's valuable, isn't it? I think it's like if you were driving a car and one of the pedals was air fuel mixture pedal, you'd think like, I don't know what that means. But engineers are often so close to the problem that they don't see it from the user perspective, whoever the end user is, and go, oh, it's an accelerator, silly.
Yeah, especially if they created it from scratch.
100%.
Because I think it just gets further from like that like use case. Sorry, or they may be meeting the use case, but they get worse at describing it.
Yeah, cool. I think I've gone through pretty much all the stuff I wanted to ask about, but is there anything that I should have asked that I forgot to?
I don't think so. I think that sums up my positive experiences at Engineer Cafe pretty well.
Thank you again for sitting down with me today, and also thanks for the stream in the past.
Oh, no problem.
I'm sure we hopefully do something again in the future. It's a really interesting topic. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks, Larry.